Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are really focusing in, getting methodical with a foundational text that speaks to something I think we've all felt at some point. That visceral pain of being slandered or falsely accused.
That's right. And we're not just skimming the surface today. This is going to be a detailed, teaching-focused discussion. We're looking at Psalm 7 and really trying to understand the mechanics of integrity, of spiritual warfare, and that unwavering promise of divine justice.
And this entire really comprehensive verse-by-verse analysis is commissioned and provided by the You Need Faith in Jesus team.
It is. And our mission today is pretty clear. We want to unpack every single verse of Psalm 7 from the King James Version.
The goal being to pull out powerful, actionable lessons. I mean, these aren't just historical poems, are they? They're more like spiritual maps for believers today who are navigating, real opposition.
Exactly. Character assassination, outright lies. It happens in professional life, in personal life.
And what's so incredible about Psalm 7 is that it gives us this ultimate spiritual strategy for when our character is under fire. David, who wrote this, was facing intense, truly life-threatening slander.
Right. And his solution was so radical. It wasn't to seek revenge. It wasn't to get into public mudslinging.
Which is our first instinct, isn't it? To fight back.
It is. But he does the opposite. He takes his entire defense, the whole case, directly to God. He recognizes him as the ultimate, impartial, and perfectly righteous judge.
It's just a masterclass in trust, utter trust.
Absolutely. The wisdom here is that the judge who actually matters, he already knows the truth.
So by going straight to God, he's bypassing all the messiness and exhaustion of trying to convince other people.
You got it. He bypasses the fallible, often biased human courts or, the court of public opinion. He goes straight to the source of eternal vindication.
Okay, so to really get the intensity of what David's doing, we have to start where he starts, the title. It sets a really tumultuous scene right from the get-go.
It does. The KJV title reads, Shiggaion of David, which he sang unto the Lord, concerning the words of Cush the Benjamite.
That title is, you said it's a goldmine. It gives so much context about the emotion and the specific threat.
It really does. Let's start with that first word, Shiggaion. It's a musical term, but a very rare one.
So what does that tell us about how the psalm itself is structured?
Well, the thinking is that Shiggaion refers to a really passionate song, maybe with a wandering, irregular rhythm. It's constantly shifting.
So it's not some calm, predictable hymn.
Not at all. This is raw spiritual expression. It reflects David's internal state, which is chaotic.
The music itself is mirroring the chaos he feels inside.
Precisely. It's reflecting his deep, almost tumultuous emotions. You've got anxiety, rage at the injustice, the pain of the false accusation, and this desperate plea for God to step in.
So the form of the song perfectly matches its function.
Exactly. When you read this, you shouldn't picture David just serenely praying. You should picture a man just pouring out his chaotic spirit and transforming that internal disorder into a piece of worshipful appeal.
That really deepens the emotional connection. Okay, and then you have this specific person named Cush the Benjamite. This isn't just a random enemy.
No, not at all. The fact that Cush is identified as a Benjamite is a huge clue. It points us directly to the political reality of David's life.
Benjamin was King Saul's tribe.
Right. So Cush was almost certainly a political operative, a loyalist to Saul's regime. He was using slander, these dangerous lies, to destabilize David's new kingship, or maybe earlier, to justify Saul's persecution of him.
So we're not talking about simple gossip here. This was a high-stakes, politically motivated campaign to ruin David.
Oh, absolutely. The accusations were likely things like treason or malice towards Saul. The lies were designed to turn everyone against him, maybe even get him executed. David wasn't just facing a physical threat. He was facing a character assassination campaign that threatened his whole destiny.
And the pain of that, the internal hurt caused by words. I remember you mentioning a proverb about that.
Yes, Proverbs chapter 18, verse 8. It says, "The words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the innermost parts of the belly."
Wow.
So when David sings this Shiggaion, he's dealing with wounds that have hit his innermost being, his honor, his integrity. Everything was being undermined by these toxic, calculated words.
So with that kind of deep, internal, life-altering attack, what's the first move David models for us?
The first response is also the hardest one, but it's the most necessary. It's radical redirection. He takes all that hurt, all his defense, and he goes directly to God in prayer.
He just refuses to play the game. He won't recognize Cush's court of public opinion as legitimate.
That's it. And that intentional move, that bypass of the human argument,
Yeah.
that's the core lesson right there, isn't it?
It has to be. I mean, the temptation, especially today, is to jump right into the comments section to fire off that defensive email.
Or to plot some kind of countermove. But David chose intentional silence toward his accuser and intentional speech toward God. It's a strategy rooted in knowing that revenge is futile. Only God's vindication is total and lasting.
So the practical application for you if you're facing false accusations, it's not about ignoring it. It's about recognizing the real battleground.
Your first move has to be vertical. Submit the pain, the evidence, everything to the only judge who really matters. It's a strategic move of faith. You're placing the burden of your defense on God, which frees you up to focus on your own integrity rather than just winning an argument.
Okay, so with that scene set by the title, David just launches into the psalm. And right away, it's this dual focus of absolute dependence and this terrifying imagery. Let's read the first two verses from the KJV.
Absolutely. Psalm 7, verses 1 and 2. O Lord my God, in thee do I put my trust. Save me from all them that persecute me, and deliver me, lest he tear my soul like a lion, rending it in pieces, while there is none to deliver.
Wow. That opening line, O Lord my God, in thee do I put my trust, just establishes his footing immediately. It's not a negotiation, it's a declaration. Absolute, non-negotiable reliance.
It's the theological foundation for everything that's about to follow.
Yeah.
David isn't relying on his army or his charisma or his ability to argue his case. His trust is. It's entirely in the Lord his God. He's saying, my security isn't circumstantial, it's relational.
And then immediately, this horrific image, the enemy as a lion ready to tear his very soul apart.
That lion metaphor is just so powerful. It conveys utter helplessness. It's not just the threat of death, it's the threat of total annihilation. A lion doesn't just kill, it rends its prey in pieces, leaving nothing whole.
So David feels like the slander is designed to completely destroy his identity, his soul, not just his physical body.
Exactly. And that feeling of helplessness is hammered home with that last phrase, while there is none to deliver.
It just elevates the whole conflict beyond what any human can fix.
It does. David knows that if the power of this political machine, or just the sheer destructiveness of the lies, is allowed to continue, no human can save him. Only God's intervention is enough to pull him out of the jaws of this predator.
And that primal imagery, the lion seeking to devour, that connects to a broader spiritual context, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The Apostle Peter warns us in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour.
So David's earthly opposition is really a manifestation of that same destructive spiritual enemy.
It's framed that way. It really underscores that the fight he was in wasn't minor. It was primal, foundational, and it was aimed right at the core of his being.
So for us, when we face persecution today, maybe a calculated attack on our reputation or our job, how does consciously placing our trust entirely in God serve as our only real defense against that kind of powerful foe?
I think it forces you to reframe what success looks like. If you try to fight that lion with your own strength, you're going to get overwhelmed. Trusting God means trusting his timing and his methods, even when they seem slower than your own impulse to defend yourself.
So you're choosing to stand on the rock of God's character when the waters of public opinion are just raging.
That's it. Your strength is irrelevant against the lion. Only God's shield matters. And this first step is so crucial, declaring full reliance before you even start presenting your evidence.
It's like he's signaling to God, and maybe to himself, that this whole appeal is based on God's power, not his own merit.
Yes. It's the prerequisite for the incredibly daring move he makes next.
Okay, this next part is, it's spiritually staggering. He doesn't just ask for protection. He basically says to God, if I'm guilty, just strike me down. I mean, for me, that invitation to be judged sounds terrifying. What gives him the confidence to take a risk like that?
That is the essential question, isn't it? And the answer is, it requires a clean heart. He shifts from asking for help to this profound legal appeal, almost challenging God to verify the accusations. Let's read those verses again because the language is just so solemn.
Psalm 7, verses 3 through 5 from the King James Version. O Lord my God, if I have done this, if there be iniquity in my hands, if I have rewarded evil unto him that was at peace with me, yea, I have delivered him that without cause is mine enemy. Let the enemy persecute my soul and take it. Yea, let him tread down my life upon the earth and lay my honor in the dust. Selah.
He's presenting a covenantal oath. He starts with a condition. If If these specific accusations, the iniquity in my hands regarding Cush or Saul, if they're true, then he explicitly gives the enemy permission to win, to annihilate him.
It could sound like spiritual arrogance, asking God to judge his righteousness. But as we said, this is really targeted at the specific charges from Cush, right? It's not a general claim that he's sinless.
Precisely. That's a critical distinction. We have to separate general sinfulness, which David had, like all of us, from his integrity on these specific alleged acts of treason or malice. He's confident that in this particular matter, his conscience is clear.
And he even adds that little note in parentheses, almost like a piece of evidence for his case. Yea, I have delivered him that without cause is mine enemy.
That's his Exhibit A for the defense. He's reminding God that far from trying to kill Saul, his enemy, he actually spared Saul's life when he had the chance.
Right, in the cave.
Yes, it solidifies his claim of innocence regarding the charges of malice and treason.
And the verdict he asks for, if he's lying, is just absolute destruction. Tread down my life upon the earth and lay mine honor in the dust. That sounds like being completely canceled in modern terms.
It is the ultimate cancellation. Total ruin, political, social, personal humiliation. He is staking everything on the truth of his conscience. He knows God's opinion is the only one that ultimately matters, and he's willing to risk it all to prove his integrity.
That kind of moral courage, it's just so rare. It reminds me of the Apostle Paul, who talked about rejoicing in the testimony of his conscience.
It does. In 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 12, Paul says, "For our rejoicing is this, the testimony of our conscience, that in simplicity and godly sincerity we have had our conversation in the world." David's confidence isn't in his own goodness, but in the sincerity of his actions on this specific issue.
And then we get to that one pivotal word, Selah.
Yeah, Selah. This isn't just a musical note, it's a spiritual instruction. After making this incredibly weighty life-or-death legal appeal, Selah demands a pause, silence, reflection.
He's essentially saying, stop. Think about what I've just said. I've put my life on the altar, now let the truth of that sink in.
Exactly. And that pause just makes the transition into the next section even more profound. It forces a moment of internal reckoning from anyone reading or hearing it.
It absolutely should. Which brings us to the practical application for us. If you are falsely accused today, maybe of dishonesty at work or malice in a friendship, can you genuinely make that appeal to God? Can you invite his harsh scrutiny on that specific charge?
And if you find even a little bit of truth in the accusation, you can't proceed with David's prayer.
Repentance has to come first.
Integrity has to be your foundation before you ask the judge to take your case. If your conscience is clear, then you gain the authority to speak boldly to God. But if it's compromised, you have to confess first, cleanse the iniquity in your hands, and then you can appeal based on mercy.
So David has declared his trust, he's established his integrity, and now he formally calls the divine court to order. He issues this cry that demands action from God himself. Let's hear verses 6 through 9.
Right. From the King James Version, Psalm 7, verses 6 through 9. Arise, O Lord, in thine anger. Lift up thyself because of the rage of my enemies. And awake from me to the judgment that thou hast commanded. So shall the congregation of the people compass thee about. For their sakes, therefore, return thou on high. The Lord shall judge the people. Judge me, O Lord, according to my righteousness and according to mine integrity that is in me. O let the wickedness of the wicked come to an end, but establish the just, for the righteous God trieth the hearts and reins.
That cry, arise, O Lord, is so powerful, it feels almost desperate. It's a plea for visible, decisive action. He's not just asking for comfort, he's asking for justice to be executed now.
It's a demand for divine intervention. David knows God isn't literally sleeping, but he's pleading for God to show up, to manifest himself actively and visibly as the ultimate judge against the rage of his enemies.
But his desire for vindication isn't purely selfish, is it? He links God's action to God's glory. He says, so shall the congregation of the people compass thee about.
And that elevates the whole petition. It moves from his personal need to a corporate witness. David wants God's justice to be so clear, so undeniable, that the congregation of the people, the entire community of believers, and even the onlookers will see it and gather to worship God because of it.
So God's act of justice becomes this public, almost evangelistic display of his sovereignty.
Exactly. And if that's the public context, the private requirement is even more intense. He asks God to judge him according to his righteousness and integrity, knowing that God judges our inner life. And then we get that critical phrase, God trieth the hearts and reins.
Okay, let's unpack that, because that's the centerpiece of this whole idea of perfect judgment, hearts and reins.
Right, so the heart in Hebrew thought refers to our thoughts, our intentions, our will. But the reins, which is literally the kidneys, that was seen as the seat of our deepest, most hidden emotions and motives. The conscience, really.
So when David says God tries the reins, he means God is scrutinizing the parts of us that even we might not fully recognize, the subconscious stuff.
That's it, exactly. God's knowledge is perfect. He isn't fooled by our outward appearance or our polished public statements. He sees our deepest core emotions, our hidden motives. He knows what we truly desire and why we do what we do.
So his judgment is perfect because his X-ray vision is perfect. Nothing is hidden.
Nothing. And we see this all through Scripture. Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 10 says, I, the Lord, search the heart. I try the reins, even to give every man according to his ways. David is confident because he knows the judge sees the sincerity of his heart, even if he's being slandered outwardly.
And then David's prayer expands. It goes beyond just Cush. It becomes this universal longing. Oh, let the wickedness of the wicked come to an end, but establish the just.
And that shows the heart of a true leader. He's not just thinking about himself. He desires this cosmic moral clarity, a future where evil is eradicated and the righteous are secure. It's really the prayer of all people who suffer injustice.
So the practical application really comes down to focus, doesn't it? If you know the judge is testing your reins, why waste so much energy defending your reputation to other people?
It should motivate you to focus intensely on inner purity. If God knows every single motive, then striving for integrity in your secret life matters infinitely more than crafting the perfect public defense. You entrust the final verdict to Him, and knowing that the ultimate record is true, it lets you afford to be misunderstood by the world for a little while.
That assurance just fundamentally changes how we react to persecution.
It allows us to stop striving. David isn't saying, okay, now I'm going to go fight Cush. He's saying, I've presented my case to the only authority that matters, and now I wait for him to act, because I know he sees my deepest truth.
So after calling the court to order, David expresses this complete certainty that God is ready to act. The psalm shifts here, doesn't it? From a legal appeal to almost declaration of war against injustice.
It does. Let's read verses 10 through 13. My defense is of God, which saveth the upright in heart. God judgeth the righteous, and God is angry with the wicked every day. If he turn not, he will whet his sword. He hath bent his bow, and made it ready. He hath also prepared for him the instruments of death. He ordaineth his arrows against the persecutors.
That opening line is an absolute conclusion. My defense is of God. After all the appeals, this is the truth he lands on.
It's his final, unbreakable confession of faith. His shield, his defender, is God himself, the one who makes it his business to save those who are upright in heart. And that gives David stability no matter how loud the lion is roaring.
And then we get this difficult but really necessary statement about God's character. God is angry with the wicked every day.
And that's a critical theological point. This isn't volatile human rage. It's the constant, settled, holy opposition of a righteous judge to persistent sin and rebellion. God's holiness has to react against evil.
He can't be neutral.
He can't, especially when injustice is committed against the innocent. So when you feel wronged, you don't have to convince an indifferent God to care. His very nature means he is already opposed to the sin committed against you.
That's a huge comfort. His anger is actually a promise that injustice won't stand forever.
Exactly. And that assurance gives David and us the confidence to entrust our case to him, knowing that God's opposition to the wicked is a 247 reality.
And this holy opposition is described with this terrifying imagery of a warrior judge getting ready for battle. He whets his sword and bends his bow.
It's graphic military imagery. It shows that judgment is impending. God isn't just threatening, he is actively preparing. To whet his sword means sharpening it, making it deadly, ready for immediate use. To bend his bow means stringing it and taking aim.
So justice isn't some distant philosophical idea. For the unrepentant, it's a certainty.
It is. It's a profound warning that God's patience, while it is vast, is not infinite. If the wicked refuse to turn back, God moves from patience to readiness. He's preparing the instruments of death, ordaining arrows specifically for the persecutors.
I remember the source material mentioning Deuteronomy chapter 32.
Yes, verse 41. In the Song of Moses, God declares, If I whet my glittering sword, and mine hand take hold on judgment, I will render vengeance to mine enemies. This establishes the pattern. The images in Psalm 7 aren't just poetic. They reflect these established declarations of God as a warrior judge.
This section offers so much comfort to someone being persecuted. How does that translate practically to how we should respond?
It gives you permission to be, well, passive in the face of aggression, but active in your faith. It relieves you of the emotional and moral burden of seeking revenge. You can tell yourself, I don't need to fight this battle because God is already preparing to fight it for me. It frees you from dirtying your own hands.
Okay, so now David moves into explaining this foundational spiritual law. It's this cosmic truth that guarantees the wicked are ultimately defeated, not just by God's power, but by the very nature of their own evil.
It's the principle that sin is inherently self-destructive. Let's read verses 14 through 16. Behold, he travaileth with iniquity, and hath conceived mischief, and brought forth falsehood. He made a pit, and digged it, and is fallen into the ditch which he made. His mischief shall return upon his own head, and his violent dealing shall come down upon his own pate.
That first verse uses this powerful biological imagery: conception, labor, birth. The wicked travaileth with iniquity. They put painful effort into evil to give birth to falsehood.
It shows that evil isn't passive. It's an active, careful, even painful process. The wicked person dedicates energy and time and scheming to conceive their malice. They labor intensely, like a woman in pain, but the only thing they give birth to is a lie, a falsehood, a track that's doomed to fail.
So their energy investment is maximized, but their spiritual return on investment is negative.
Exactly. Which leads directly to that famous spiritual law, the boomerang effect. The plotter becomes the victim of his own plot. He made a pit and digged it, and is fallen into the ditch which he made.
That's a universal truth, isn't it? Deceit and malice, by their nature, just undermine the person who's perpetrating them.
It's the ultimate expression of reaping what you sow. It's a core law of divine order. If you spend your time digging traps for other people, you are inevitably walking dangerously close to the edge of that pit yourself.
And the outcome is stated with such chilling certainty. His mischief shall return upon his own head.
The divine justice system is self-regulating. The very harm the wicked intended for David is guaranteed to revert back to them. We see it in Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. It's an inescapable divine certainty.
And the Bible gives us that perfect, specific example of this law in action with Haman.
Oh, Haman in the book of Esther is the textbook case. He was so consumed by malice for Mordecai that he built this huge gallows just to hang him. An elaborate plot born from pure hatred. But because of God's intervention, the ditch Haman dug was the one he fell into.
Esther chapter 7, verse 10 says, So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai.
The perfect boomerang.
But in the moment, when an accusation costs you a job or a friendship, how do you practically stop yourself from seeking immediate revenge, even knowing this long-term spiritual law?
That is the challenge of faith, isn't it? The practical application of these verses is finding real peace in not retaliating. You have to stop yourself by remembering that you don't need to waste your energy on revenge. God is already handling the demolition of their schemes.
So your goal shifts from destroying the enemy to preserving your own soul.
Precisely. And what's more, this truth serves as a powerful deterrent for us. Knowing that deceit and harmful intent are boomerangs, well, it should warn us away from ever engaging in that kind of behavior ourselves, even in self-defense. If you want to avoid the ditch, you have to stop digging pits for other people.
So the psalm began in this place of total chaos and terror, fleeing a lion, crying out for God. It went through this dangerous legal appeal and divine warning, but it ends not in exhaustion, but in this: soaring confidence in worship.
It does. Let's read the final verse, verse 17. I will praise the Lord according to his righteousness, and will sing praise to the name of the Lord Most High.
That is such a climactic turn. It's so powerful that he commits to praise before the final outcome is even secured.
And that is the essence of mature faith right there. He moves from desperation to settled confidence. But the nature of his praise is what's crucial. It's according to his righteousness. He's not praising God for the deliverance he's already seen.
He's praising God for his perfect, unchanging character.
That's it. He's resting his entire case on the judge's integrity, not on the current state of his circumstances. He's saying, even if the lion is still roaring, even if the lies haven't gone away yet, I know who you are. Your nature is righteous, and that's enough reason to worship.
His focus is anchored on the fixed character of God, and that's what gives him stability through the crisis.
Yes, and worshiping God as the Lord Most High is the ultimate acknowledgement of sovereignty. That title, Most High, means God is above all human conflicts, above Cush, above Saul, above all earthly courts. His verdict is the final definitive one.
So this model that David gives us, this journey from pain through an appeal based on integrity to settled confidence and finally to praise, that's the spiritual roadmap for us to follow in any trial.
It really is. It teaches us to process our deepest hurts, not by suppressing them or by retaliating, but by intentionally submitting them to divine justice. It transforms suffering into an opportunity for deeper worship.
This has been such a vital and detailed exploration. So just to recap the core journey of Psalm 7, it starts with the pain of slander, the threat of the lion in verses 1 and 2. Then it moves to that incredibly bold legal appeal, inviting God to scrutinize his integrity in verses 3 through 5.
And that integrity allowed him to call on God to arise and judge, trusting that God trieth the hearts and reins. That's verses 6 through 9. Then he finds his security in the declaration of the warrior judge's readiness to act in verses 10 through 13.
Right. And then comes the assurance that evil plots are designed by divine law to self-destruct in verses 14 through 16.
And it all culminates in verse 17 with that triumphant conclusion of confident worship, praising God not for a victory he's seen, but for his perfect, unwavering righteousness.
Okay, so let's distill all of this into 3 concrete takeaways that you can apply to your life today when you're facing opposition.
Right. The first takeaway really addresses our internal accountability. Seek divine scrutiny.
Meaning, you should actively cultivate a clean conscience.
Exactly. Don't fear God's test of your heart, the hearts and reins. Aim for integrity in all your dealings, so that when you are falsely accused, you can honestly appeal to the ultimate judge. A clean conscience is your foundation.
Okay. The second takeaway dictates our response to the enemy. Entrust vengeance.
This is a tough one. When you feel that rage, that desire for retribution, you have to intentionally release that burden. Don't seek revenge. Trust the spiritual law that evil is self-destructive. The wicked will fall into their own traps.
Your peace is secured by entrusting retribution to God.
It is. And the final takeaway is about maintaining perspective and stability. Worship in advance.
Anchor your focus not on your current circumstances or the noise of the lion or the pressure of the accusation,
But on the unchanging righteousness of God. Follow David's example. Move from petition to processing to confident praise based entirely on who God is, regardless of when human vindication actually arrives.
We really hope this verse-by-verse exploration of Psalm 7 has given you a robust spiritual roadmap for handling slander and opposition with both courage and peace. Your ultimate security rests not on your ability to defend your reputation, but on the unchanging, perfect character of the God you serve.
It's a truly transformative text for anyone who feels targeted or misunderstood. It directs us away from that human urge for immediate conflict and toward the eternal power of the divine court.
And thank you once again to the You Need Faith in Jesus team for providing this powerful text for our discussion and for commissioning this detailed analysis. We encourage you to carry the assurance of God's righteous judgment and the wisdom of David's response with you throughout your week.
And please remember those crucial final steps. To really solidify your understanding of this lesson, be sure to use the flashcards to review key terms and then take the quiz. Passing the quiz will mark this lesson as complete.
Until next time, keep trusting in the judge, keep striving for a clean heart, and keep your focus fixed firmly on the Lord Most High.